My name is Maddison.
Sorry.
My name is Maddison Moliga of the Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center. I am the LGBT youth case manager, as she stated earlier. Just a really few quick tidbits about me. I am someone who is transgender. I am someone who was addicted to substances. I am someone who was homeless. I am someone who identifies as a woman. And I'm also Samoan American. I think it's really important for me to introduce myself as these things because it allows you, it creates a space for us. And knowing that for myself as a trans woman coming into this space, I am grateful. I'm truly grateful to be able to use my voice to advocate for the keiki.
We're really grateful to have you, and your willingness to use your voice in this way. It's super important, and thank you for that. I wanted to get us started. As I mentioned before, and we in our office, we do keep repeating this to folks with whom we have conversations. The students themselves have named this need for more comprehensive sex ed in schools. Have you seen this in your personal experiences or in your work?
Absolutely. Currently, when I'm out in the field, I get a lot of questions, and I get a lot of questions from all types of youth. I get questions from straight, gay, bisexual, lesbian, transgender. There's a wide array of youth out there, and they each have the same types of questions about, oh, Miss Maddison, how do I do these things? Something that you should have learned in school, honestly. Sometimes they ask me questions that I'm like, well, love, how I found out about that was that I ended up becoming homeless and I transitioned and I had to learn on my own, right? That experience for me, that's my own personal experience, right? But when I am working with my clients, there's no real education. There's no real education around me teaching you how to be LGBT, how to navigate your LGBTQIA-ness, if you get what I'm saying, right? There's not really a course for us to take. Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center does offer LGBT sensitivity training, but I think that's more on the professional level. So I see the need for this bill. I see the need to have some kind of training, to have accurate representation for LGBT students, because the kids are asking. This is not the parents messaging the school. This is not the parents. These are not the teachers. These are not the principals or anything else. These are the students. These are the words that are coming out of our keiki's mouth.
Yeah.
Right? This is their desire. They want to know about these things. So why should we stop them from knowing about it?
Yeah, and I think that it is important that, part of this legislation is about teacher training. So empowering the teachers to have a better background, better understanding, so that they can better inform students when they're in the school setting. Because oftentimes I feel like students might not feel comfortable asking their parents, but they know that their teachers are supposed to be sources of information.
And confidentiality, right?
Right. So I feel like the teachers are a really critical component of this conversation. And frankly, I think there might be some young people who don't feel safe with their parents. They might feel like their parents already have very strong feelings about the issue and about identity, that might make these young people feel like they might not be accepted if they ask those questions of their parents. So that's one of the reasons I think that having this conversation, as difficult as it is for the public, is really important, because the schools are meant to be a safe space for our young people. Can I ask you, and you work so much with youth, can you talk a little bit about why better sex health education will improve or can improve short-term and long-term development in our youth?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I would like to I would like to say that this time in a youth's life, right, in any adolescent's life, the portion of their brain that's developing at this time, right, is it's I don't know the specific term for this portion of the brain, but this is the portion of the brain that's responsible for making decisions, right? And at this stage, children are like sponges, right? You have your 2-year-olds walking around saying F you, not realizing that's a bad word. So you have to train your child and say, baby, that's not a good word. You say a good word, okay? Say love you instead of F you, right?
Yeah.
And as you get older, right? As we get older, we start to be able to go to school on our own. We start to catch the school bus. Mom and dad are giving us more freedom to go catch city bus. Mom and dad are giving us more freedom. They handed us the keys to a car, right?
Yeah.
But there's this portion that's kind of missing about better sex education, because whether people like to admit it or not, kids have sex. And I want to share this as my own personal experience. I had my first homosexual act at the age of 12, and it was consensual. I understood it. I said, yes, let's do this. I want to try it, right? But I also want to point out that this curriculum coming into this stage of their developmental stages, by having having a teacher who is skilled or not skilled or just trained, or at least not even trained, maybe even have a resource available to navigate my LGBT student to, right? That's what will create the difference. That's what will stop the bullying. That's what will stop the kids the LGBT youth running away from home because they cannot be themselves anywhere. They cannot be themselves at home, so they have to go to school. And this is why you see kids hiding their clothes in their backpacks or going to their friend's house to get ready before school. And then they go to school dressed as a girl. Because how do I know this? Because I did it, right? I did it.
So, I mean, I think that you had mentioned that young people need guidance kind of navigating this discovery of their identity. And I think that that kind of connects to a fear that I'm hearing articulated by folks who are protesting against this bill. And that fear is that this legislation would enable teachers or force teachers to groom young people to adopt a certain identity. And can you talk a little bit about what you think of that kind of analysis, or how you know, your experience kind of, or you know, your work experience as well kind of connects with that analysis, if at all?
Yeah, so I first of all, I just want to say that's a load of crap. That is a load of crap. I knew from the age of 4.5 that I liked boys. As a young boy, I knew that I liked boys. I would play house with my friends in kindergarten, and I would play the mom. And I had a little crush, and he was the cutest. He was just the cutest. He would always be like, well, if you're going to be the mom, I'm going to be the dad, right? And then that in my mind, that this is normal. This is okay, right? And as I got older, by the age of 10, actually by the age of 9, I was I was raped. I was raped. I didn't ask for it. I told my family, and it was kind of brushed off. It was kind of brushed off. That never happened. That was the words they said to me. Stop lying. By the time I was 10, I was fully feminine. The way I walk, the way I talk, people would ask me, oh my gosh, are you gay? And I would tell them, no, I'm straight, just like that, right? And by the time I was 15, I was cross-dressing, and I was beaten brutally for it, right? I was beaten brutally for it. Why? Oh, you're an F slur. If you're not familiar with the F slur, which I'm sure we all are, they called me that word. They called me that word over and over and over again, calling me a mahu. I didn't know what a mahu was. You know, I was just like, I'm straight. That's all I knew. There was no education behind what feelings I was feeling. By the time I was 8 years old, I already had known that being gay was a sin. I went to church and being told, yes, men who lie with men are going to end up in hell. I was told things like, all of the homosexuals will die and go to hell. You're all sinful. And as a child, right here, an 8-year-old child sitting there knowing that I'm a boy and knowing that I have an attraction to boys, that put me in a state of fear. That put me in a state of fear. And not the fear of God that the Christians could continuously speak about. I was afraid of my church. I was afraid of going to church because if I were to walk through these doors, the church is going to set on fire. I was afraid that if I was feminine outside, that my cousins would beat me up. Right? And then let's go a little bit further on now that I am a 31-year-old trans woman. Right? To this day, I still don't have the acceptance of my own mother, the woman who raised me. She still prays for me daily as her son. And if you can understand the pain, I'm 31 years old, and my mom has been saying the same prayer to me, praying that her son will come back to the grace of God. For what? Sorry, for what? For what? I was told that I'm going to hell by these Christians. I was told by my mom and dad, that's wrong. I was told by everybody around me, oh, you're gay. So that put me in a constant state of fear, a constant fear of looking over my shoulder because the boys are going to come push me into the corner and punch me in the ribs so that the teachers don't see the bruises here. Yeah, they don't see it here. My shirt is covering it. And they tell me, if you go and tell the teacher, we'll come back and beat you up again. Right? I was bullied fiercely, and it turned me into a bully. I in turn turned around because I got bigger than these boys. Right? I got bigger. And I said, oh, come, we go fight. Right? I said, come, we go fight. I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover. But I have to fight now at this age in my life, right? Because everybody telling me how I should live. But we didn't have that education back then. We didn't have a curriculum that told us, this is what the L in LGBT stands for. This is how their lifestyle is, and it's okay. Not everybody's Christian. So this would make sense if everybody on this island was Christian, or if everybody in this world was Christian, right? Yeah, and to me, that's just my own personal experience with living in fear constantly, always, even today. I perform as well. And people ask me all the time, are you going to ask your mom to come? I would never let my mom come see me like that because I'm scared of her. I'm scared she's going to call me a boy in front of everybody. I'm scared that she's going to call me by my old name in front of people. I'm afraid that she's going to refer to me as he, him in front of people, my own mother. So thank you so much for listening to that. I was just very passionate
I think
about that.
and I think a couple of things. While I think the most vocal Christian voices on this issue are those who really focus on I would say, like, well, I'm trying to figure out a positive way to say this, and I honestly am having a hard time. But the groups who are most hostile to this bill, who identify themselves as Christian, are not the only, they don't represent the entirety of the Christian faith. So I think that there are a lot of Christians who are very affirming, accepting, and are really embracing of all of humanity, because they come at their understanding of Christianity is slightly differently, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
also do want to share this. I understand where you're coming from, but I'm not Christian. I don't identify as a Christian, but I am religious. I am spiritual. I'm sorry. I'm very spiritual. I believe in my higher power and I believe that he sent somebody here to die for me, right? Um, but because of this life that I live, I would never want to step foot back into a church.
Hmm.
But I do know that he loves me, and that's all that matters. And that's why I get to be alive today to do this kind of work.
Yeah. I think, you know, your explanation of your experience kind of leads me to my next question, which is, you know, we're being told by students and teachers alike that representation, accurate representation of these diverse identities is really lacking in our educational spaces at the moment. And I think that, you know, it's surprising to me. Actually, it's been a kind of shocking experience because when we started this journey with this bill, I did not expect it to resonate. I knew that it would excite some hostility, but I did not expect young people to reach out to me, and young people who I don't know because I'm not in the classroom anymore. But and young people along the whole spectrum, like straight to very queer, saying that they thought this was the most important issue and that they felt like they were not getting adequate sex education in school, and that there was a problem with teachers having an outdated sense of their sense of themselves, right? So that there was this like consciousness gap between folks who are teaching these classes and how young people are understanding themselves. And maybe that's a result of their exposure to social media and also to each other. I think that young people learn from each other and are kind of you know, they act in solidarity with each other. But I was wondering, you know, these young people have talked about like a seemingly innocuous lack of inclusion and lack of representation. But I really think about how that affects their mental health, because I know, having worked with teenagers for more than 20 years, that if you do not feel safe, you can't learn. Your brain is just short circuiting. There's wiring that your synapses are not connecting properly. So can you talk a little bit about that connection between mental health and learning?
Of course. So mental health and learning, mental health and learning they go hand in hand, right? We see it more as we see it as adults, right? We have these conditions that you hear commonly: anxiety, depression, ADHD, all of these conditions, and you hear about that, and it really affects their workplace, right? It affects them wanting to work. It affects them wanting to, hey, maybe I'm not going to go the extra mile today because I just don't give a damn, right? Now let's take it back just a few years into high school, right? The few years into high school, when you have that mentality in high school of, you know what, I don't understand. I've been coming to this class every single day. I get bullied. I told my teacher, she doesn't listen. I told my counselor, he doesn't listen. Why aren't they listening to you? Well, I'm telling them they're bullying me because I'm gay, bullying me because I'm trans, bullying me because of whatever, right? Now that kid doesn't want to go to class. And instead of going to class to sit there and soak in the knowledge and the education that is to be provided by their teacher, now I'm too busy worried about, are they passing notes about me, right? Are they talking about me? People look past me just a little bit, and then I start to have anxiety, right? I start to have this anxiety, and now I don't want to go to class. Right? These kind of situations will lead into bigger situations. Running away from home. Not feeling heard leads kids to run away from home. Right? Not being being neglected, right? Being told, mommy, I'm being bullied at work. I'm being bullied at school. Teacher, I'm being bullied at school. And they don't get heard. What are they going to do? They're going to go run to somebody who's going to listen to them. How do you know that that person who's listening to them is not a drug dealer? You know, how do you know that the person that's listening to them wants to hurt them? Right? At least with teachers, you have that cone of competence. That's why we run to you guys, to tell you, hey, the so-and-so over there is calling me the F word. He's calling me the F slur. And it's a teacher's job to then turn around and protect my student and say, hey, you can't do that. I'm going to go ahead and do whatever it needs to take. And that's why it's really important to incorporate this curriculum so we can teach the teachers exactly how to work in these situations, right? Because that mental health, when it declines at that young age, when they become older, they have less likelihood to be successful. They have less likelihood to become team players. They have less likelihood to become corporate, into a corporate world, right? You run away, you become homeless, you end up addicted to drugs, you end up living in a tarp. Why? Why are my kids going through that? Why did I go through that? Why did we have to experience this stuff? When all it took was a teacher to stand up for me and say, hey, you don't call him that. That's not nice. Instead of just pushing me to the side and saying, well, this isn't the first time, right, Sal? You know, this isn't the first time. What are you doing wrong? What do you mean, what am I doing wrong? I'm just being gay. I'm just gay. Why are they beating me up for it? Right? I didn't want to go to school anymore. Didn't. F school. I almost said the F word, sorry. But that's exactly the mindset. F school. Yeah. And then you know what happens when you have someone who runs away from home and then they're living on the streets, and then you have somebody who's living from a youth age until the age of 27. Did you know that studies show that if a youth continues to be homeless after the age of 27, that person is 3 times more likely to become chronically homeless? And then, so now you have people passing by all of these people on the streets. We don't know their stories. Now we start talking crap about the homeless people, right? Start talking crap about homeless people. Oh, go get a job. Oh, go do this. Oh, go do that. You don't know their stories. And that's a really extreme case, right? And the reason why I know that case is because it's mine. It's my case. I had to get arrested to change my life. I in my mind as a homeless person, I knew that the only way off the streets is to catch a felony, get into a clean and sober house, go to treatment, and then get my own place. Hopefully they'll help me get my place. So that is my connection between mental health and education. If we can end all of this at that age,
yeah,
then we can definitely start addressing bigger issues, issues of youth homelessness, issues of youth food insecurity, issues of actual youth issues that are really big and important that we should be focusing on. We should be focusing on youth shelters, right? Not about what our youth are. Are you crazy? That's really not, that's manini. They call it. Manini means small.
Yeah. And I think too, our youth suicide rates, like if you look at the proportion who identify as LGBTQ+, then it's really disproportionately high. And it's because those young people are, you know, like we've been talking about, they're just not getting the acceptance in schools. And I think too, like one thing I want to say, and I'll say this even as a former teacher, and I know that teachers are face a lot of challenges and are often asked to do everything with no support. So, and I worry that this ask is not funded, this is another example of that. But I do want to say up front that we are also hearing from young people that there are teachers who are not properly trained and don't have the necessary educational background, and who are actively demonizing young people who don't fit into a narrow kind of hetero cis model of identity. And I was wondering, you know, do you think that, and we've talked a little bit about, how teachers' failure to step in, right, or to stop bullying can be detrimental. But can you talk, have you had any experience, or can you speak to the kind of instance when teachers are actively demonizing young people who are outside kind of what they're willing to accept in terms of identity?
Absolutely. I do have a client of mine. Can't give you a name, but I have a client of mine who identifies as trans, and they believe fully that they were expelled from school because of their transness. She has reported to me that she was separated from her class. She was put into specialized programs like the CSAP program that I was placed in my time. For those of you who don't know, CSAP stands for Comprehensive Student Alienation Program. Comprehensive Student Alienation Program. And what was the reason that she was put into CSAP? Because she told me she had good grades. She had great grades, but she kept getting into these fights, right? She kept getting into these fights, and she was so tired of it. And she said, Auntie, they put me in CSAP with the other two mahous. I said, wait, is there anybody else in your class? No, Auntie, only has us three mahous inside. Why, and I'm asking, of course, this is, now I'm getting infuriated, yeah. Well, what are the other two? Do you know, why are they in CSAP? Oh, because they get into fights too. But one of them going to leave pretty soon, Auntie. She says she can go pooch. And for those of you who don't know, pooching is another term for sex work, yeah. And this is also another big issue within our youth, trans youth, even the LGBT youth, right? They feel that they have nothing left. They run away from home and they go pooch, sex work. They go make that money and then they go and fund their dreams. They may do it incorrectly because they don't have that navigation, right? But that's what it does, that it creates that kind of space. Not having this kind of curriculum creates that space. Not having the protection from the teacher creates that space. It's like what I said, how do you know that the person that's listening to your child is not a drug dealer, is not a pimp, not a sex trafficker? Listen to your kids. Listen to them. They may not know exactly how to tell you what's on their heart, but they'll figure it out, And it's just not news to me, right? That we're being demonized. It's not news to me. That's so horrible to say. It's not news. You've been working with kids for 20 years, right? I'm about 30 years old, so I'm pretty sure I was in school while you were teaching, right? So that means that these things were happening while you were an active teacher. And not saying that it's your fault, I'm not saying it's the teacher's fault. What I'm saying is there is a lack of education around LGBT folks, gender identity. Let's ask me. I would love to sit down and have a conversation with anybody, any day, a conversation before everybody going into my DMs now, talking crap to me. No, I'm open to have conversations with people about who I am, because I'm beautiful. I am intelligent, I am strong, and I'm freaking mouthy, right? So this kind of stuff has been happening for decades. It's been happening as long as trans people have been around. It's been happening for as long as somebody who isn't cisgender heterosexual. That's it, you know?
So I think that leads me to my final question. And I have been doing a lot of thinking about the way this same conversation has kind of like what you alluded to has been on repeat for a long time. And I feel I'm not tired of it. I just feel like it's frustrating because the who suffers in my view are the young people who continue to be marginalized. If adults can't get it together, and I feel like this is happening to generations of young people. So I'm wondering, like, what we can do besides this bill as community members to work together to support overall wellness of our youth who with identities and that are marginalized or who face oppression, and understanding that kind of gap. I mean, I really feel like it's urgent that we find some common ground that can provide the kind of safe space that our young people need, just to protect them from harm. And I was wondering, like, what do you think is a way of working forward together, and then maybe not together? Like, what do you think we need to do as community members?
Well, first and foremost, I'm going to say this, it's a pretty default answer. Do your research, right? Research the politicians, research the representatives that are going into office. Do your research, because sometimes just by that simple little Google search, you'll find out that there are actually people out there who are fighting for the things that you're frustrated about, right? And you're one of them. You're one of them. You're one of the people that is here right now. You're taking on my burden. That's what you're doing for me today. You're taking on my burden and you're lifting me up and you're empowering me, not only me, my entire community, and not only my entire community, but the next generation of LGBT youth. Those kids are going to be our presidents. They're going to be our representatives. They're going to be our CEOs of companies. They are going to be pastors. I said pastors, okay? There are pastors. That is the next generation of working people. And for us to take care of them and to support them, how we can support them is also do a little bit of research. See, there are many youth organizations around the island. I work here as a youth representative at the Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center, but I work closely with other agencies like Halekipa. I work closely with agencies like Rise Youth Empowerment down in Kailua. I work with Waikiki Health. I work with Alea Bridge all the way out in Haleiwa. And I work with all different types of agencies as well, surrounding agencies. And go to these agencies, volunteer. Go to these agencies and volunteer and see go out into the community and learn. Go out and do stuff like that. You see an event, you see a drag show, go to it. You know, you see RuPaul's Drag Race on TV, watch it, right? You see one of your favorite cousins that's transgender who is starting to run for a pageant, go support her pageant. You know, everything that we do daily, anything that we do daily can benefit the community. All it takes is that willingness to make a change, right? You and I, we're here making a change systemically. But what we can do to change ourselves in our daily lives and to support the LGBT community, have a conversation. I know everybody has at least one LGBT friend. And that one LGBT friend probably knows another friend that knows me, right? And I will be more than happy to come and enlighten you and show you, as long as you are respectful about it. Because like I mentioned earlier in my interview, I grew up fighting. Yeah, just kidding. We don't do that anymore because my nails are pretty, but you know what I'm saying? Be respectful, respect one another. How
Yeah.
would you guys feel if I walked around, what if the roles were reversed, right? And being straight was the sin. Being straight was wow. Just imagine that. Just imagine that. Imagine if the straight people were the wrong ones. What if we were the ones telling you guys that, and I know that was really just like a little funny, light example, but really, really, that's what it is. It takes the time to be respectful and compassionate.
Mm.
Open your minds, open your hearts, because these are our kids. These are our kids. And I like to refer to them as my kids. I like to refer to them as my kids because I hope that they get to run into me. I hope that I get to meet every single LGBT kid out there. I hope that I can help teach them about the different things that they do, that they're going to experience, and all of these lovely things that they'll have in store for them. You know what is also crazy? You turn 18 and you become an adult and you have experienced all that trauma in high school, middle school. Come on to the work. Everybody lives for us. Everyone lives for us. They love us. They love the LGBT community. You have people, straight people walking around going, yes. You have those Christians walking around going, yes. Where did that come from, my love? The LGBT influence, although you may not participate in our lifestyle, the influence will always be there. Let that be the knock. Let that be the knock on your door that tells you, I'm going to support my LGBT child. I'm going to love my trans child. Even if you don't love them, that's okay. Call me up. I'll come and pick them up and I'll love them. Okay?
Okay.
And
I
thank
really
you so
love,
much.
yeah, I think that you said the most important thing, the thing that needs to be said is that like these core principles of respect and compassion. And I think that here we have such an opportunity because there is kind of this culture of aloha, and sometimes it's commodified and it's misused and it's diluted. But I do think that it's one aspect of this place that gives us a possibility of doing something different here, so I don't think that we are like the continent. We can
You're not.
better. So I so much appreciate this time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You've given me a lot to think about, and I hope that we can continue talking. I look forward to continuing to work with you. Do you have any last things that you want to say, or?
Yes, absolutely. And I just want to say thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be transgender and to be in this space right now. This is a lot. And I hope that whoever is watching this, I hope that if you are someone who is LGBT or you have a child who is LGBT, love on them. Love on them because it's so crucial right now. There's war going on. There's famine. People are dying from COVID still. People are still dying from HIV. People are dying every day. And every day that you don't get to love your LGBT child is the day that you won't get to spend with them at the end. And I just want to say, for those of you watching this live, just love each other. Be nice. Be nice already. It's not tired fighting. Just be nice. Play nice already. And also, if you are a youth experiencing homelessness or at risk of experiencing homelessness, feel free to reach out to me. My phone number, and I'm going to say it right here on Facebook for everybody to know. It's 445-0579. If you are, like I said, a youth at risk of being homeless or already homeless, please reach out to me and we can help you get to a better place.
Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Aloha.